trafficking and the supply and divide the Taliban so that they can be destroyed in detail. Also, I would like the Senator to comment on the link between our ROE in our combat troops operate under and the casualties we take because of it.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to leave it at that point. We appreciate it. Let me introduce you, as promised, to Congressman Duncan Hunter, joining us also from Capitol Hill this morning. Congressman Hunter is the member of the House Armed Services Committee. He represents California's 52nd District, which is in San Diego, northern San Diego area in Congress. And he is a Marine. Just 2 years before coming to Congress, he served one of his 3 overseas tours in Afghanistan, giving him a very special perspective on this debate. Congressman Hunter, thanks for being with us.
Great to be here.
2 senators have made the point before you arrived that we have to define what our policy objectives are. Do you believe our policy objectives in Afghanistan are clear?
Yeah, I think they are, and that's when General McChrystal a few weeks ago sent back his metrics and his objectives for Afghanistan. He had very specific metrics, things that he wanted to see met, and that was preempting this request for 40,000 troops, why he needs those troops. Those metrics were laid out very clearly. How many soldiers he wants to train, how many Afghan security force, police guys he wants to train, how we're going to gauge success. And I think that the State Department and General McChrystal and DOD have a good grasp on the metrics that they're going to use in order to achieve victory, what victory is going to be. And I think ultimately victory is going to be when we can train the Afghan military up enough, train the Afghan police up enough, get their government set up just like in Iraq, and then we can leave like we're doing in Iraq now.
Well, will you comment from your special experience on the ground there, one that very few members of Congress can bring into the debate, about the ability to train to an acceptable level Afghan fighting forces?
It's difficult, and if, the Afghan people are much different than the Iraqis, where the Iraqis were really ready to be trained. They already had a standing military, a big standing military, which we disbanded, kind of brought them back together and retrained them, had a lot of Marines and soldiers embedded with them. So now we're looking at Afghanistan. You have a much lower literacy rate, and you just kind of have a smaller pool to pull people from in Afghanistan. That's going to make it difficult, but it's still doable. I mean, that's what the Marines and soldiers do. That's counterinsurgency, training them so that we can leave and they can stand up on their own. It's going to be harder than Iraq probably, but it's still doable. And I think that's why General McChrystal is asking for so many troops. You have to have that secure environment and that security situation in order to enact the objectives that we're trying to meet, which end up being training up that police force and military so we can leave.
And about the possibility in Afghan society for allegiance to a national government.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Whether or not the Afghan society with its culture of tribes is one where you could successfully have a national government or a federal government.
That's a great question. I don't know. In fact, I think when we kind of installed Karzai in this government, I think we probably made the wrong move, because Afghanistan is very tribal. They like to work off what we call zhurgas. They have local zhurgas, they have loya zhurgas, they have these big meetings of their tribal elders. That's how they've always ran government. When we tried to impose this parliamentary system on them, I think the people of Afghanistan lost a lot of trust in their government. That's something that the State Department needs to work out strategically, is do we have the right government in place where the Afghan people really feel like they're part of it? I don't think that we have that now. I think you have a lot of allegations that President Karzai is corrupt, that he installs people in his government who are corrupt, that are involved in the opium trade there, involved with Taliban forces. I think we have to get all of that out of the way. We got to start with a clean slate, possibly, with their government, make sure that the Afghan people feel like they're really a part of it and that they're in a real democracy. I think that's important.
Will you, and I promise this will be my last question from before we take viewer calls, but will you give people a little bit of a taste of your experience on the ground in Afghanistan so they will understand what kinds of conditions we send our fighting men and women into?
Well, actually, my Iraq tours, both of those were both combat tours. Afghanistan, I did targeting for the International Security Assistance Force. Didn't do much ground play in Afghanistan, but it's really difficult. You have the southern area where the Marines are now, Kandahar in the Helmand province. It's extremely flat, dry, desert country. You go up in the northeast, RC East with the Army. It's much different country. It's very wooded, hilly. very difficult country. It's almost Vietnamish. You have small trails that the bad guys can cross, that they can walk over from the mountains from Pakistan. So you have almost two totally different operating environments, one very low desert, one very high, cold, mountainous area. So it is difficult, but remember, even though Afghanistan is bigger than Iraq is, the population centers are much smaller, meaning you have very focused areas where we could focus our 40,000 troops. Our counterinsurgency scheme would be focused on those population centers. It wouldn't be in western Afghanistan. It wouldn't be in northern Afghanistan. It would be in the southern area and the eastern area. That's why I think that this can work, even though there's so much landmass there. These population centers are much more focused than they were in Iraq.
For Congressman Duncan Hunter, Armed Services Committee, Columbia, Maryland, Robert, Democrats line.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I wanted to make a quick comment about Senator Webb's appearance and then ask Representative
Go
Hunter.
ahead, sir.
Is Senator Webb's term, the threshold period, it really comes across as ridiculous because we've been there for 7 years. And how long? There should have been a threshold period within that 7 years. It makes it sound like our soldiers have been over there watching the poppy fields grow. And it just sounds ridiculous that 7 years into it, we're now looking at a threshold period.
And your question?
My question is, I watched the hearing when Representative Hunter was the chair of the Armed Services Committee on Abu Ghraib, and I was wondering if he regretted that they didn't handle the situation at the time.
That was a much different Duncan Hunter that you were watching there, about 30 years older.
Oh, okay. One other thing is, General McChrystal, wasn't he involved with the Pat Tillman thing?
I don't know.
All right, caller, thanks very much. The caller before him, I promised that we would answer his questions, which he wanted to know whether or not we deployed geostationary satellites in our work in the region. Do you happen to know the answer to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we have satellite sensors up in the sky overlooking Afghanistan and Iraq, and frankly, probably anywhere else we're involved militarily. So I'm sure we have satellites up there looking down. And
infrared capabilities, which would assist in our efforts to catch the drug traffickers as they use the mountain passes.
Yeah, we have IR capability, and he also mentioned bombing those passes closed. I don't think you want to seal off the border by bombing it between Afghanistan and Pakistan. What's going to help make Afghanistan successful for us is when we engage economically Afghanistan with Pakistan, get some trade going there that is not a drug trade. That's going to be important. That's going to give the Afghan people jobs. They aren't going to want to join the Taliban. They're going to want to go to work for FedEx. I think that's another helpful thing in this scenario.
McCammon, Idaho. Larry, Republican line. Good morning.
Yes, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to speak with you this morning. I was a scout pilot in Vietnam. I understand the difficulties in fighting an insurgent war. First, you have to find these people before you can deal with them. And I don't understand why the politicians don't allow our military people, our generals, to fight this war and not fight it from Washington, D.C., and allow them to try to make these decisions 9,000 miles away when the generals on the ground understand the situation and how difficult it is to find these people when you're fighting an insurgent war. They're not wearing a uniform where you can just identify them and deal with them.
Thank you, Larry.
No, he's absolutely right. I mean, this is one of those issues. President Obama put General McChrystal in charge of Afghanistan because theoretically General McChrystal would be the smartest guy, the best guy for this job in the entire U.S. military. Theoretically, he could be the best guy for this job to lead us in Afghanistan in the entire country. That's why he's there. So why would the president and the administration not now listen to General McChrystal, who is the most knowledgeable, the most capable, the most able, and the most ready to win in Afghanistan? Why would we not listen to the man who the president put in charge when he comes up and says, we can win this, we can be victorious, here's what I need to do it. All I'm asking for is your support, Mr. President. Congress, I'm asking for your support here's what I need to get the job done in Afghanistan, we ought to be doing that. We ought to be listening to General McChrystal. We ought to be listening to those soldiers on the ground who see things firsthand. Congress doesn't win wars. Our soldiers and our Marines, sailors, and airmen win wars, and what we have to do is allow them to do it, get them the support that they need to do it, and that's what I'm hoping to see from President Obama, is some leadership on this, where he steps up and says, look, General McChrystal, the guy who I put in charge, gave me a recommendation. He asked for support, and I'm going to give it to him. We're going to go with that. We're going to win this. That's what I would like to see the President say.
Mr. Hunter, from the other side of the spectrum, a viewer named Sue Smart asked by Twitter, please ask Representative Hunter how we can afford our large internationally deployed military. Aren't we deeply in debt?
We are deeply in debt, but it isn't because of our international military. It's because of the $700 billion stimulus. It's because of the $700 billion TARP. It's because we've increased spending on every single appropriations bill that we've passed so far in this Congress. This Congress is spending money. They're actually cutting defense. Defense got cut this year, and it's projected to get cut over the next 4 or 5 years. It isn't defense that's breaking us. It's overspending on social programs.
And Portland, Tennessee, you're on for the Congressman.
Yes, a previous caller mentioned this. I've read that General McChrystal was in charge of the cover-up of Pat and the murder of Pat Tillman. So why doesn't the Congressman answer what that?
Yeah, I'm not sure about General McChrystal's past with Pat Tillman. And Pat Tillman wasn't murdered. He was killed by friendly fire. It's an unfortunate thing that does happen, and it's extremely unfortunate. Pat Tillman was a great American, somebody who joined up. You all know his story. Great guy, and what happened to him was extremely unfortunate, and our thoughts and prayers are with his family as always. I don't know the backstory on what General McChrystal had to do with Pat Tillman now.
Mr. Hunter, we are out of time. The House has come into session, so at this point we'll have to say goodbye to you. Thank you so much for being with us on the Washington Journal today.
Thank you.
And now to today's session of the House of Representatives, where in fact the debate will be on defense spending.